A stratified model of art history, from cave walls to quantum states. Chapter 3. The photographic layer, mechanical vision. For thousands of years, every image that existed in the world had been made by a human hand. Someone had to pick up a tool, a brush, a stick, a finger, and physically apply pigment to a surface. The skill of the hand was inseparable from the image it made. Photography ended that. When a photograph is made, no hand draws or paints anything. Light bounces off a subject, passes through a lens, and strikes a surface coated with light-sensitive chemicals. A reaction happens. An image appears. The photographer chooses the moment and the framing, but the image itself is generated by a physical process, by light and chemistry working together, largely beyond the direct control of any human hand. This was one of the most radical shifts in the entire history of image making. And, like all the layers we have looked at so far, it did not erase what came before. It added something genuinely new. And in doing so, it changed everything around it. Light as the artist. The key word for understanding photography is automation. For the first time, an image could make itself, or at least it could appear to do so. When Louis Daguerre in France and William Henry Fox Talbot in England announced their photographic processes within months of each other in 1839, the reaction across Europe was astonishment. Here was a process by which the world could, in a sense, draw its own picture. The detail captured by a photograph, every leaf on a tree, every thread in a coat, every pore in a piece of wood, was far beyond what any human hand could render in the same amount of time, and it was generated not by skill, but by physics. This connects photography back to the cave handprint we discussed in Chapter 1. Remember the idea of the indexical image, an image that is not just a representation of something, but a direct physical trace of it? The cave handprint was indexical because it was made by an actual hand pressing against actual rock. Photography is indexical for the same reason, but at a different scale. The image is made by actual light bouncing off an actual subject and leaving its mark on an actual surface. In both cases, the image is evidence. It says something was really there. What the machine sees differently. A camera does not see the way a human eye does. This seems obvious, but its implications took a long time to fully understand. A human painter looking at a scene makes thousands of small decisions: what to include, what to leave out, what to emphasize, how to simplify. The result is always an interpretation as much as a record. A photograph, by contrast, captures everything within its frame with equal fidelity: the intended subject and the accidental detail in the corner, the carefully composed center and the blurred edge, the fraction of a second and nothing more. Photography introduced an entirely new relationship between images and time. A painting of a galloping horse made before photography existed typically showed the horse in a pose that looked like galloping, a pose based on what painters observed and what their patrons expected. When Edward Muybridge used photography in the 1870s to capture the actual positions of a horse's legs during a gallop, the results were startling. The horse's legs moved in ways that no painter had ever depicted because no human eye could see them clearly enough. Photography revealed a world of motion that had always been there but had never been visible. In this sense, the camera extended human vision beyond its natural limits. It could freeze a fraction of a second. It could capture motion too fast for the eye to follow. It made the invisible visible, not through imagination, but through mechanics. The image as evidence. One of the most powerful and complicated consequences of photography was the way it changed the relationship between images and truth. Because a photograph is generated by a mechanical process, because no human hand draws its details, it carries a different kind of authority than a painting. We tend to believe photographs in a way we do not always believe paintings. A painted portrait might flatter its subject. A photograph, we feel, shows us what was really there. This belief, whether fully justified or not, had enormous consequences. Photography became the foundation of journalism, of legal evidence, of scientific documentation, of personal memory. The family photograph album, the newspaper image, the passport photo, the crime scene photograph, all of these rest on the assumption that a photograph tells the truth in a way that a drawing or painting cannot. Of course, this assumption has always been complicated. Photographs can be staged, selected, cropped, and manipulated. But the cultural power of the idea, the photograph as objective record, reshaped how people understood reality itself. Seeing was no longer just believing. Seeing a photograph was believing. What happened to painting? When photography arrived, many people predicted the death of painting. Why would anyone commission a painted portrait when a photograph could capture a likeness in minutes at a fraction of the cost? But painting did not die. Instead, it did something more interesting. It reinvented itself. Freed from the obligation to record appearances faithfully, a job that photography could now do faster and more accurately, painters began to ask different questions. Not what does this look like, but what does this feel like? Not how do I capture this scene, but what is the nature of seeing itself? The result was Impressionism, which explored the fleeting quality of light and perception rather than the fixed appearance of things. And then Post-Impressionism, Expressionism, Cubism, abstraction. One after another, painters pushed further and further away from the idea of the image as a faithful record of the visible world. Photography, by taking over that role, set painting free. This is exactly what the stratified model predicts. A new layer does not destroy the ones below it, it puts pressure on them, and that pressure forces them to change and find new possibilities. The cave layer is still there beneath the canvas layer. The canvas layer is still there beneath the photographic layer. Each layer reorganizes the ones below it without erasing them. From chemistry to computation. Photography also prepared the ground for everything that came after it: film, digital imaging, and the binary layer we will encounter later in this essay. Once it was understood that an image could be generated by a physical process, by light striking a surface and triggering a chemical reaction, it became possible to imagine other kinds of processes generating images in other kinds of ways. The step from a chemical reaction to an electrical signal is large in technical terms, but small in conceptual ones. Both involve a physical process translating the world into an image without the direct intervention of a human hand. When digital cameras replaced film cameras, the light-sensitive chemical coating was replaced by a light-sensitive electronic sensor. The image was no longer stored as a pattern of silver particles in an emulsion, it was stored as a pattern of numbers in a memory chip. But the basic logic was the same. Light comes in, an image comes out. Photography established the idea that images could be machine-made. Everything that followed, film, digital, binary, built on that foundation. The persistence of the photographic layer. Photography is now nearly 2 centuries old, and yet it is more present in our lives than ever. Every smartphone is a camera. Surveillance systems photograph public spaces continuously. Satellites photograph the entire surface of the Earth. Medical imaging systems photograph the inside of our bodies. The chemical processes that Degas and Talbot invented have largely been replaced by digital sensors, but the logic of the photographic layer, the idea that a machine can capture an image of the world by registering the effects of light, has not gone anywhere. It has only multiplied, accelerated, and become so ubiquitous that we barely notice it anymore. The hand stepped back, the machine stepped forward, and the world has been saturated with images ever since.